Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Be Curious family-friendly event, Your Words Inherited and Adopted. My name is Shawnee, and I'm one of the organisers of Be Curious here at the University of Leeds. Each year, we invite you to take a peek at what really goes on inside a university when we run Be Curious. And this year, as you can probably tell, we're online. So we're coming at you from our homes, hopefully to the comfort of your own home, whether you're watching us from the sofa, from the dining table, from the bedroom, wherever, we're with you. So for Be Curious this year, we're inviting you to design, imagine, make, do, glue, explore, and so much more, all with us from the comfort of home. We're going to be going live with Be Curious activities and events right up until the 15th of July. So be sure to check out the rest of our family programme after you've watched today's event. You can see a link to it just there, scrolling at the bottom, but stay tuned because you'll not want to miss what we've got in store for you this afternoon. We've got loads more hands-on family activities after school each night at 4 o'clock during Be Curious, and brand new for this year as well, and for the grown-ups watching, we have Be Curious Lates that are running for adults every afternoon from evening from 8 o'clock. So back to this afternoon's activity. Really excited for this one. We're going to be exploring your words, where they came from, why you say them, have you inherited them from family members, have you got any weird and wonderful and funny ones that might sound normal to you but a little bit different or unusual to somebody else. And I'm really interested in this one because I've got some strong regional words in my dialect. So I think I'm going to be getting involved on the chat and talking about those too. We're really excited that we'll be welcoming Rosemary Hall from our Dialect and Heritage Project at the university to talk to you today. We're going to be encouraging you to use the chat to say hello and get involved and tell us your words, share them with us this afternoon. So you should see the chat to your right-hand side if you're viewing us in YouTube. If you're not already watching in YouTube and you might be in Eventbrite, just hover over your screen and click the option to view us in YouTube, just so you can get the very best experience. And you can see that chat and you can join in as well. Our moderator team, Sarah and Laura, are on hand this afternoon, and I think they'd really love to say hello to some of you guys that are tuning in from home. So let's try it now. If you can, find the chat on your right-hand side and say hello. Let us know who you're watching with, where you're tuning in from, how old are you watching with, parents, carers, grandparents, pets, little brothers and sisters. We would really love to know, especially because we want to find out their words as well in today's session. They'll be keeping an eye on the chat, Sarah and Laura, our moderators, so I'm sure they'd like to say hello back to you. Now, I would really like to welcome this afternoon's presenter for you, who's going to deliver a fantastic session, I know it. So I'm going to introduce Rosemary Hall. Hi, Rosie.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here.
So I'm going to leave it over to you now, Rosie. Have a fantastic session, everybody, and I will see you later.
Thanks, Shawnee. Hi, everyone. My name's Rosie, or Rosemary. I'm the research assistant at the Dialect and Heritage Project here at the university, and it's really exciting to be here today to talk to you about adopted and inherited dialect words. So we really want to hear from you in this workshop, so don't be afraid to speak up. Use the comments there. Tell us about your words in response to the prompts. We're especially interested in certain types of words, as you might have guessed from the materials you've seen about the workshop. So I'll tell you more about those as we go, and I hope we can have a really nice discussion, just as if we were in the same room. So today we'll start with a little bit of getting to know each other. I'll then tell you a bit about the Dialect and Heritage Project. And then, as I said, we're going to have a really nice discussion about your words, why you have them, where they come from, and the sort of stories behind them. So really excited to talk to you all about that. It's great to see you all introducing yourselves in the chat there. And if you enjoy the workshop and you're interested in the Dialect and Heritage Project or getting involved some more, I'll tell you about ways that you can get involved after that. Okay, so I think we're having a couple of comments coming through from people we've got people in Selby, we've got people with pets, we've got cats involved, parrots. We've got Isla, who's in Selby, who's 10. Fantastic. Great. Okay, so we've got parents, we've got all sorts. Okay, it's really great to see you all. Thank you. A tiny bit about me as an example. I'm Rosie. I live in Oxford. It's just me today. I'm not taking part with anybody else, but my sort of dialect background comes from the West Midlands. Okay, so I want to start by just telling you a tiny brief nutshell overview of what the Dialect and Heritage Project is before we start talking about words, just to pique your interest, and you can always find out more by visiting the Leeds University Library's Special Collections website, and very soon over the summer our own new website. Okay, it's great to see some of you saying that you're really excited. That's great. Thanks, Jeremy. Lovely. Okay, so the Dialect and Heritage Project is all about words and speech and heritage, and that's why it's in the title. So what we're aiming to do is to make an amazing big collection of dialect materials and materials all to do with history and ways of life of the past, to make that accessible to people. So in the 1950s and 60s, a team of researchers from the university were really interested in dialects, different ways of talking, different words, different accents, different word order, all sorts. That, you know, do you say bath or bath? Bath or bath? Sorry, I say bath, as you can tell. Do you say batch or cob for bread? All that sort of thing. These researchers were really interested in dialect, and they wanted to make sure that they had a record of the different ways that people speak all over England. And so they went all over the country and they interviewed people and they made recordings and they wrote hundreds and hundreds of notes. And we have this amazing archive in the university at Leeds, but at the moment, it's not that easy to see it. It's not that easy to access it. And that's something that we really want to change. So we'll be digitizing the archive. In the archive, you've got all these sound recordings of people's accents and dialects, but you've also got photographs of people. Some of these people were born in 1860, so they were really old in 1960 something when they were interviewed, for example. We've got photographs, we've got audio, we've got notes, we've got all sorts of really fascinating material, and you can find out about the past and about your ancestors. So we're digitizing that, meaning you can look at all this stuff online on the internet from home. And we're also having events all over the country sharing these materials with people, so you can see them in the flesh if you go to some of our partner museums. I'll tell you about those later. And we're also collecting new dialect data. So I can see people in the chat saying, I say bath, I say bath, and so on. We can find out your words and record them and add them to the archive, so we can compare how people speak now with the past, with all this amazing data that we have. So that's the Dialect and Heritage Project in a tiny, tiny nutshell. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, because what I really want to do today is hear from you about your words. But you can find out lots more online. There'll be some links shared towards the end of the session. But what I want to just do to sort of warm us up is just have a little brainstorm. So please, if everybody could type something in the comments, in the chat, I want to know what dialect means to you. What does it mean to you? And that could be what you think dialect is, or what's its significance for you personally. What does dialect mean to you? Great. Yep, I can see some responses coming through. That's great. Jenny says, my mum says It's where she's from. That's great. Yep. So dialect can tell us about place, can't it? It can tell us about where we're from. That's great, Miranda. Southern mother, northern children. Guess who normally wins? Anise says, does it mean how you do something? That's really interesting. And Isla Pie, we've got, it means what you say and how you say it. Lovely. Yeah, these are great, everyone. Keep them coming. Fantastic. I mean, I think dialect for me, absolutely. So Ninja Studios is saying it's how we speak. For me, it's also a lot to do with identity, isn't it? With who we are and where we feel we come from, and family history and that sort of thing. Okay. I'll just wait and see if anyone else wants to contribute to that before we move on. Fantastic. Okay, how we speak, what you say and how you say it. Lovely. Thanks, everyone. So exactly as you were saying, dialect really links together people and places, doesn't it? So we all have features of our ways of speaking. So words, phrases, pronunciations, that's your bath again, and grammatical forms. And they come from where we grew up and went to school. We all have these. Often we learn these quite early on in life, from where we grew up or where we live. And these features can sometimes sort of give away where we're from. So if you say cob for a bread roll, that probably means I can tell that you're from Nottingham. If you say Bath, then I can probably tell that you're from the south of England, that sort of thing. So dialect links together people and places, and you can almost sometimes, with a lot of exceptions, you can sometimes even put a pin on a map when you hear someone speaking to say, I think that person's from Liverpool, I think that person's from anywhere in the world, really, not necessarily just in England or just in the UK. So we all have these words. For example, here's a few different ways of saying Freckles. Does anybody recognize any of these words? These are all different dialect words for freckles. You've got fern tickles, murfles, branny speckles, freckles, and fran tittles. And that's not all of them either. There's many, many more. So I'm interested to know if anybody here in the audience, whether that's parents or children, use any of these words. Yeah, okay, so Miranda and Jenny both say freckles. Yeah. Oh, lovely. Okay, Isla Pie says, my papa, granddad, says ferny tickles. So that's a little bit different from fern tickles. It's got a ferny tickles. That's a lovely example. He's from Scotland. Okay, excellent. Fantastic. Okay, how about this one? Got plenty more where these came from. And I can see this one, actually, Jenny's already been commenting on, the word for a sort of piece of dough that's been baked in the oven, if I don't want to say the word. For me, this is a bread roll or just a roll. Jenny's already mentions that she says bread cake, but her nanny says roll. That's great. Anyone else? This usually causes all sorts of quite strong feeling, strong opinion. Do you say cob, batch, roll, barm cake, bun, muffin? Any others? There's lots of others as well. This is not all of them. Yeah. Roll, but sometimes bread cake. That's lovely. Bun from Ninja Studios. Yeah, bread roll or bun. That's great. There's another one here that I thought you might like. These are lots of different words for a hedgehog. Does anybody use any of these different words for a hedgehog? So we've got all these different examples here. We've got hedgehog, furze pig, urchin, it's a very old one, prickly pig. We sometimes call it a hodgehog, but that's just being silly. Lovely. Yeah. And like I said with the other ones, this isn't all of them. So we also get, I think my favorite one is prickly backed boar, I've heard, which is a lovely one. Anyone say anything other than hedgehog? I think it's mostly just hedgehog now. Yeah. Okay. And then we've got words for your packed lunch that you take to school with you, or to work with you, or on a picnic, on a walk. Do you say packed lunch? Do you say nuncheon? Maybe if you're from Dorset. Nammit, Tommy, snap, bait. Anyone use any of these? This is another one that seems to really, really divide opinion sometimes. Anise, that's great. You say bait. Isla Pie says pack up. And Jenny C says your daddy takes snap when he goes fishing. Fantastic. That's great. So it's really interesting for you all to see. You're all coming from different parts of the world, different parts of England. And I think we've got some people from Scotland here as well. And you've all got different words for the same thing, which is really interesting. So these sorts of features of language can, as I said earlier, they can sort of give somebody listening to you a clue about where you're from. So if I hear somebody, if we go back to the bread roll example, if I hear somebody saying cob, I'm pretty sure they're going to be from Nottingham, because that's where, if you order a corn on the cob, you might be at risk of actually getting some corn in some bread. Because in Nottingham, a cob is a bread roll. Here's a map that sort of demonstrates the same concept. So this is a map that shows the different ways that people in different parts of England say to mean to brew tea. So if you're up in the furthest north there, you might say mass or mask with a k at the end. Most of the north and Midlands, it's mash the tea. And then you've got wet the tea, and in the southwest there, soak the tea. So this is the type of map that the researchers at Leeds in the 50s and 60s and onwards could make when they'd collected all of their data together and seen how people were using words. You can produce a map like this. Just going to move on to the next slide. Sometimes it's actually really finely grained. So it's not just a matter of north or south all the time. We often talk about north or south, like with that Bath example. But sometimes it's really granular. So that word the words we were looking at earlier for freckles, here's a little map of all the different words for freckles that are used just in the north of England. So you can see there you've got, I'm just looking really closely so I can read them. Fern tickles, ferny tickles. That's the one, I think, was it Jenny that was saying earlier, or Isla Pie? Spreckles, freckles, farm speckles, and so on. And this is all just within one area. So it can be really, really finely grained. It can depend from village to village, not just from region to region or town to town, how you say something, whether you use a different word, different pronunciation or anything like that. So what I want to hear from you now is your local words. So words that are interesting from where you come from. So if you were to speak to me, I might say, I hear Fernie tickles. That person must be from Scotland. What are your local words? Pop them in the chat. We would love to hear them. Words that help us to know where you're from. And do stick in the chat as well where you are in the country, where you're coming from, so we can match up your word to where you live. So do tell us some of your local words in the chat. We'd love to hear where you're coming from. Okay, there's a lovely example here. Oh, they're all coming through now. Okay, so there's a little bit of a delay between you typing in your comments and me seeing them at this end. So that's why if I'm being a bit quiet, but these are fantastic. Okay, so Isla Pie says, when my mum was younger, she said chuddy for chewing gum. She grew up in Yorkshire, but her dad is in London and he never knew what she was talking about. Very nice. Anise says, instead of tea, we say dinner. All sorts of variation there, isn't there? You can say tea, you can say dinner, you can say supper. Sometimes people mean eating at different times of day when they use these different words. It can cause lots of confusion. Jenny C says Mardy bum. That's a lovely one. Jenny and Anise, can you let us know where you're from? Miranda says supper. Yep. And we've got faffing about. That's a lovely one from Leeds. Thank you. Fantastic. Okay, Anise, you're from Bradford. Yeah. Very nice examples. Lovely. So we all have these words from where we're from. And maybe that's not that surprising because when we live in a place, that's where we hear language all the time, and that's where we pick up words that we use every day. Besides these words that come from our local area, though, sometimes we also have more unexpected words or words that are a bit more sort of difficult to explain or a bit sort of surprising. Words that maybe would contradict a map like the one we saw earlier, a map of, in this part of the country it's mash, or in this part of the country it's hedge pig. Words that might actually contradict what's expected in the place where you're from, or words that you could say we shouldn't have. And these types of words, we can divide them into what we're calling inherited words and adopted words. So I'll explain those two to you. These are types of words that we're really, really interested in here at the Dialect and Heritage Project. And we want to know why we use these words, where we get them from, how we acquire them. So let's dive a bit deeper. So what is an inherited word? An inherited word is a word that's passed down to us. You can think of it as a downwards motion, as a vertical motion. Often they're coming from parents or from grandparents who grew up in a different place from us. So that's what makes the word surprising. You might have a word from a place that you've never been. You might even have a word from a person that you've never met. Like, for example, if you never met your great-granddad, but they passed on a word to your granddad, and then you take that word from him, you've in a sense inherited that word from your great-granddad. So, like I said, these are often words that we don't really know why we have them. And sometimes we don't even know that it is surprising that we have them, because until we use them with somebody else, we don't realize it's not a very common word. So, for example, Some of my family come from the West Midlands. They come from Dudley in the Black Country, and I've never lived in Dudley, but for some reason I have lots and lots of Dudley words and phrases. So I say toothy pegs for teeth, and I say chobble to sort of gobble up food greedily. I say chuntering to mean chuntering away, chattering away, talking. You could even chunter in your sleep. Another one I say is fat as a tunky pig, which I'm told is a classic West Midlands phrase. And all of these words are Dudley words, but I've never lived in Dudley, and I haven't spent a lot of time with my family that come from that area. So it's a little bit surprising that I have them. I know that our project lead at the Dialect and Heritage Project, Fiona Douglas, uses the word bwrwch, which is a Gaelic word. Even though she's not a Gaelic-speaking Scot, her grandfather was, and she got this word through her mum, even though she never met her grandfather. So this is how we can kind of inherit words, and we don't even know where they come from sometimes until we start talking to each other, until we start talking to our grandparents and parents and finding out, oh, actually, that word's from the West Midlands, or that word's from Scotland, that's a Gaelic word. So what we would really love to know is if you have any of these words. So what I'd like you to do is, wherever you are, if you're at home with family, have a chat about how family members have influenced your way of speaking. What words or other dialect features have you inherited from them? Where do they come from? And what do they mean to you? And anything you can put from that discussion into the chat, we would love to hear. So we've got a few things already coming in. So Ninja Studio says, my mum's granny was from Newcastle and always called people pet. So do you use that word too? Do you use pet? Is that something that you've inherited, or just something that you have heard your mum's granny saying? Maybe your mum uses it. Nice. So Isle of High says, my family call the cooling towers at the power station pepper pots. So I wonder whether that's a local word or, lovely, from your mum, because she thought they looked like salt and pepper shakers. Thank you, Isla. That's fantastic. Okay. Great. Yeah. So duck. A lot of those terms of endearment we can inherit sometimes from family members. So people might use duck or pet or chick. Those are all ones that can stick and come down the generations with us. Anyone else got any words that they're not sure where they come from, or they come from the person that they're attending with today? Okay, there's another lovely one from Isle of High. Thank you. We call the crusty bits you get in your eyes when you wake up sleepy men. That's fantastic. My grandma called it that, but we don't know where she got it from. Okay, so that's a great example. We don't know where that word comes from, but we know you inherited it from your grandma. Fantastic. Okay, I'll let those keep coming in because there's a bit of a delay, but you can please do send us your examples. And after the workshop, carry on talking about this. You know, ring up your grandma if she's not with you, ring up your granddad, your aunts, your uncles, any family members, and think about the dialect words that they have and that you have and where they might have come from, which ones you might have inherited. So the second type of words that we're interested in, that I want to talk to you today, is adopted words. So whereas inherited words is a sort of, like I said, downwards movement, so a vertical type of transmission comes down to us, these words we can think of as being a bit more sort of sideways or horizontal. So these are words that we pick up from other people, usually picking up words from friends, people we work with, people we go to school with, or just generally, if we move to a different part of the country or a different part of the world, picking up words from people in that new place. So, for example, again, our project lead, Fiona, she comes from Scotland, but she's lived in Yorkshire for quite some time. And now when she talks about a stream, so a small river, if you like, she uses the Yorkshire term for that. That's beck, rather than the Scottish term burn, for example. I've got an adopted word. I lived in Gloucestershire for a while, and there, when you were talking about something that you thought was really great or really delicious or really lovely, you use the word lush. I use the word lush all the time. That's an adopted word because I'm not from Gloucestershire, but I lived there for a bit, and now I say lush. So if somebody puts a plate of food in front of me, I'll say, oh, that looks lush. I also sometimes use the word nesh, which is from a completely different part of the country. Nesh is a northwestern English word, meaning sensitive to cold. So if someone's nesh, they're maybe a bit wimpy, they're always needing an extra layer, they're always complaining about being cold. I've never lived in the Northwest, but I've adopted that from my husband, whose parents originally come from the Northwest of England. So does anyone have any adopted words they want to share? So how have your friends at school or people you work with or people you used to work with, if you're retired, how have they influenced your way of speaking? What words or other dialect features, maybe accent features, have you adopted from them? Where did they come from? What do these words mean to you? And what about if you've moved? If you moved from school to school, town to town, country to country, have you picked up new words from that new place? So again, please give us some ideas about your adopted words in the comments. So I wonder if Lorna can tell us a little bit more. You've used the example of the word the crack was 90. The crack was 90. Where's that come from? Is that an inherited word or an adopted word, Lorna? And just to say, I'm also asking this question about what these words mean to you, because we're really interested in how these words make people feel. Do they conjure up memories of the person that you got them from? Do they make you feel at home in a new place, like an outsider in a new place? Okay, so Isla says, my mum says some words with a different accent because she was born in the South, grew up in Yorkshire and has Scots parents. She says funny with a London accent and squirrel with a Scots accent. Okay, yes. Okay, yes, wonderful examples here coming in. Thank you, everyone. So that's Benjamin, I think, saying in Scotland you say ben instead of mountain. And then Lorna, yeah, that crack is coming from Northern Ireland. Lovely. You grew up there, so inherited maybe. Okay. Any other words that you've adopted, whether from going to school in a new place or just words that you pick up from your friends or people at work? Sometimes when we move to a new place, it's nice to feel like you fit in, and so it's easier to use the word that everybody else is using. I think that's why I started using the word lush, because all my friends were saying it. Okay, so there's a nice one from Lorna there. I've started calling friends hun. Is that a Yorkshire thing I've picked up? I don't know whether that's a Yorkshire thing. I've heard hun in a few different places, but really interesting that you're taking that from your friends. Interesting. And then Jenny C, on TikTok, people say things are fire, like really cool. Okay. Lovely. Okay, keep them coming. We'll move on, but please do send us these, continue to pop these into the comments. This is great. So you might be interested in how you can get involved in the Dialect and Heritage Project. So all the words that you've been telling us today, and maybe words that you'll be having in conversation with your parents and grandparents and siblings and friends over the next few days and weeks, you can send them to us. You can send us your words today by following the link that's under this video and also in the comments in a second to an online form. So you've got a bit of time to have a think more about your inherited words and your adopted words and where they come from and what they mean to you. And you can fill out this form and tell us about them. You can also follow us on Twitter, where you can follow updates about the Dialect and Heritage Project. And coming up, we've got all sorts of exciting activities as we start to be collecting more and more data about how people speak all over the country. And so when we're doing that, we're going to need volunteers. So if you're interested in volunteering for the Dialect and Heritage Project, you can email us on dialectandheritage@leeds.ac.uk. From this summer, you will also be able to explore the digitised collection and contribute to our dialect research online through our new website, which is launching very soon. So keep an eye out for that. If you email us on dialectandheritage@leeds.ac.uk, we can add you to our mailing list, or you can follow us on Twitter for all the latest updates. We would really love to hear from you. Dialect is all about you, not about people in the university, but about people who are using language every day. And then what we're interested in looking at is how language is changing over time. And hopefully, if we work together, you can give us an opportunity to do that research, and you can really make an incredibly important contribution. So please do follow us and get in touch. Another thing you can do over the summer is get involved in dialect events and activities that will be happening at our 5 partner museums. Really, really fantastic places to visit with your family or with your friends. We've got the Avencroft Museum of Historic Buildings in Worcestershire. In North Yorkshire, we've got 2 museums, Dales Countryside Museum and Rydale Folk Museum. Then in Suffolk, there's the Museum of East Anglian Life. And in West Sussex, we've got the Weald and Downland Living Museum. And we'll be having dialect events and activities at all these museums over the summer. So you can get involved and come and meet us in person. And we would really, really love that. So that's it from me. Do fill out that form. We would really, really love to hear your words. You can complete the form as many times as you like. So if you've got more than one, that's no problem. In fact, that's fantastic. And we'll really look forward to hearing your responses. Thank you so much for sharing all of these wonderful words with us. It's been a pleasure to speak to you today.
Hiccup there. Thank you so much, Rosie, for such a fascinating tour through dialect. I mean, I told you I was going to love it because I've got loads of my own words. So I'm going to throw a few out there for anybody who's still watching. Mine are always really controversial and people get arguing about them. So I say snicket for an alleyway, or sometimes ginnel. But I said gennel, more like with an E rather than an I. So I don't know what you call an alleyway or a path between maybe a housing estate. But I used to live next to a snicket, gennel, growing up. What do you call it, Rosie?
I always said 10-foot.
I've never heard that one in my life. That's never come up in any of the arguing.
A lot of different ones.
People in the chat, people on my side saying snicket too. I feel like a winner when people support what I think.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this one on Twitter earlier today. I say, so I'm from Rotherham, which is not very far away from Leeds. And when I came to Leeds, nobody could understand me when I used to say, I've got luggy hair. Now, luggy's like, you have a knot in your hair. And I've got really luggy hair. And nobody understood me. It's really weird, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a great word. I say lugs. My mum used to brush my hair and say it's full of lugs, or it's luggy. And
similar to lugs, lugol is your ear.
These can also be lugs, yeah.
Yeah, in Rotherham, at least it is. So if you say any of those ones, let me know in the chat, because I like to feel supported in my dialect words. Thank you so much, Rosie. And everybody in the chat, I wonder if you can join me in saying a huge, huge thank you for that exciting session. And I hope you carry on these conversations at home. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us at home for such a brilliant session and really getting involved there on the chat. I love to see everybody seeing what each other's saying and joining in. It's really, really interesting for us behind the scenes to watch. And I know the Dialects and Heritage Project team will really love to have a look at that chat after and see all your words. So please do contribute to that form that they shared, add your words to it, and I'm going to share it later on Twitter, and I'll pop it in an email along with an evaluation form that's going to go out to parents and carers that booked the session in a little bit. If you did enjoy today's session, as I was just coming onto there, please let us know. It really helps us to make sure our sessions are the best they can possibly be and that you guys are enjoying them at home. So we have got an evaluation form that we'd really love it if you could fill in. So I think we're going to pop a link to that in the chat now so that you can just click on that. Oh, and it's popping up here below on a banner for me. You might want to click on that link in the chat when it goes in there. And that's really, really short, but it just gives us a good idea of how you found the session. And yeah, keep sharing those words with us. You might want to share them on Twitter. If so, we are at Uni Leeds Engage on Twitter. And you can follow on with loads of Be Curious fun at #BeCurious21. So as I said, we're doing events right up until the 15th of July. So make sure you have a good old look at that programme, which is available at www.leeds.ac.uk/Be Curious. And grown-ups watching today, if you are interested in the Dialects and Heritage Project and would like to find out more, join us for our Be Curious Lates event next Thursday, where Fiona Douglas, who Rosie mentioned there in the talk, will be giving a really interesting talk about some of the research that's going on as part of the project. So that is it from us for another afternoon of Be Curious. Like I said, go and have a look at that programme and be sure to join us for some other sessions. But I hope you had a great time. Thank you, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye, everybody.